So if we look at something a little bit more in the context of using congruent triangles, this comes from an ancient Greek method for finding the distance of a ship out at sea. And really, if we look at something like this, it says, how can you explain, or how could you determine the distance from the boat to the lighthouse here using congruent triangles? And so what we do is we imagine ourselves as someone who's here on the land. So what we would probably do, we'd go up here, we'd climb up into this this lighthouse here. So that's us sitting up there. We are enormous up there in that lighthouse. And then what we'd do is we would just take a measurement. We'd measure this angle. So we'd measure the angle right here, looking down directly at the ship. So essentially we'd be taking this angle measurement right here. All right. The other thing we know is hopefully this tower is upright, this lighthouse. So this would give me a right angle down here. And then what we do is we essentially just take the same measurement looking in the other direction. Okay. So we look out here in this direction towards the land, and we try to measure that angle in the same direction and try to align it with some kind of landmark over here. So I try to measure the same angle out this way. And keep in mind that I can look all over the land and try to line this up with maybe there's a tree out here somewhere that matches up with that angle. Well, that's a beautiful looking tree, by the way. So we kind of copy this angle, and we just identify a landmark so that when we climb back down the tower, what we have here is, again, this is a right angle. We know that this side right here, the tower, is congruent to itself. So what I have is I have congruent triangles by angle, side, angle. All right, because we created an angle up at the top of the lighthouse that's the same on each side, all I have to do then, if I know that these triangles are congruent, I know that all their pieces are congruent. So I know this piece is congruent to this piece. But most importantly, I know that this piece down here is congruent to this piece down here. So these distances will be the same. So even though I can't walk across water and measure the distance from the boat, I can walk across the grass here and measure the distance to this tree, and then I'll have my measurement. So essentially what we're doing here is we're kind of thinking this out in terms of a paragraph proof, but really we would copy the same angle. So whatever the distance here is, the distance here is going to be. Well, we'd copy that same angle at the top, thus creating congruent triangles, and then we can measure the distance to the boat by measuring the distance on land from the lighthouse to a fixed point where that triangle would end. Okay?